Shivers, The Enchanted Attic by M.D. Spencer. Chapter 18. By the next morning, Casey had forgotten about the attic. Either that, or she was pretending she'd forgotten. It was Sunday. The sky was gray and dark, but it was unseasonably warm. Outside, the snow had melted, creating small rivers beside the dirt road that led to their house. The fields were filled with mud. After breakfast, Nicole said simply, "Come on." She assumed they were both going to explore the attic once more, but Casey decided to explore outside instead. Nicole wasn't sure whether Casey was just too scared to go into the attic, or whether she was really attracted by all the new streams outside. Either explanation seemed possible. Casey certainly did enjoy examining streams for any signs of life, or any signs of mud, and there was plenty of that. And her mind might really have been on the school play the next night. Casey, of course, was going to be the star. She said it was going to be the most important night of her life. But she had seemed awfully frightened the night before. Well, let her go outside, Nicole thought. I'm going up to the attic. I'm not afraid. She had second thoughts, though, when she pulled the bookcase open and shone the flashlight down the dark passageway. It occurred to her that this would be the first time she had been along the passageway and up the stairs by herself. She took a deep breath and crawled in. Many of the cobwebs were gone, cleared out by the previous 2 trips she and Casey had made through the passageway. Still, it was dark and silent and eerie in there. She turned the corner, stood up, and started up the narrow staircase, the beam of light shining in front of her so she could avoid the steps that looked dangerous. At the top of the stairs, she shined the light on the keyhole and inserted the key. She had locked the door when they had left the day before. She didn't know why. Something had told her that it ought to be locked. Maybe it had been locked before for a reason. The key turned, and she opened the door. As she pushed on it, she heard something scraping along the floor, being pushed across the floorboards by the opening of the door. Lying on the floor was the schoolteacher doll. Nicole knew she had left it leaning against the trunk in the center of the room. The schoolteacher had been beaming with pride at her daughter, the bride. How did the doll get over to the doorway? Who had moved it? Nicole knew no one could have gone into the attic. She'd had the key the whole time. She had slept with it under her pillow. Fearfully, she stepped further into the attic, looking left and right, as if she expected something to jump out at her. She walked to the trunk. It was still in the center of the room. The top was still closed, as she and Casey had left it, when it was the backdrop to their stage show. But none of the dolls were nearby. The bride, the groom, the wedding party, all were gone. Nicole felt the hair on the back of her neck lift up. There was only one possible explanation. Ghosts. Nothing else could go through a locked door. This was the first she had ever heard of ghosts playing with dolls. But that didn't make her any happier about the possibility of meeting them. Every instinct she had told her to flee, to save herself, to get out while she still could. But she wanted to investigate just a little more. She shined the light around the room. Against one wall, she saw an object. She stepped closer to look. It was the bride. Nicole's heart almost stopped. The doll was in a totally different position than she'd been in before. Yesterday, she had been standing, looking straight ahead with her hands at her sides. Now she stood with her arms folded, looking back over one shoulder. But the most amazing thing was the expression on her face was different. Where before there had been a radiant smile, there was now an angry frown. Eyes that had glowed with pride glowered now in a scowl. Nicole ran for the door, slammed it shut, and locked it behind her. Back in the study, Nicole composed herself and tried to gather her thoughts. The answer to whatever was going on in the attic lay here, in this room, probably in the desk. Whoever had built the attic and locked it, and then hid the key, had known what was going on. There was a reason for all this. She walked to the desk, resolutely opened the bottom left-hand drawer, and pulled out the book. She knew now that books had not caused her imagination to be overactive. Whatever was going on in the attic was real, and she thought perhaps this book, far from misleading her, could tell her what it was. She opened it, turned to the first page, and read again the handwritten title, Fowler Family History, 1751 to the present. She turned the yellowed pages carefully. She skipped that parts about Josiah Fowler, his parents, his wife, children, and aunts and uncles. She was good at that. She had once read Gone with the Wind, all 1,000 plus pages of it, in 2 weeks. Her father had been stunned. He just couldn't believe it. What he didn't realize was that Nicole was skimming over the boring parts. Long battlefield scenes and the like. And reading carefully again when the book returned to the business of discussing Rhett and Scarlet. She read like that now, skipping every other paragraph and reading the beginning of the next to see if it interested her. It was a little harder here because the Fowler family history was handwritten. In an old style with lots of curly cues, so it was a little hard to read. She skipped the parts about coming to America and moving from Virginia to Massachusetts, and about who had married whom on what particular day. She scanned several pages like that, standing at the desk, her eyes moving swiftly from the top to the bottom of each handwritten sheet. Suddenly, one particular sentence caught her eye. The words almost jumped off the page at her. She bit her lip and slowly sank into the chair. It was time to sit down, to stop skimming, and start some careful reading. There is, I believe, a curse on the Fowler family, she read. Although whether the curse is on the family or on the house in which I sit, I cannot say for sure.